Welcome back to Out of Spec Bits. I'm your host, Jordan, and I'm joined by Kyle, and we are here to talk about the Cybertruck range extender appearing to go missing. Almost feels like an Apple AirPower situation.
Okay, I'm maybe a bit more optimistic than you, but I want to talk about my problems with the range extender, which I think I've done a video on Out of Spec Reviews mentioning this, but I feel like this deserves a dedicated Cybertruck range extender video because it just feels so un-Tesla to do something like this.
To make the range extender?
Yes.
Yeah,
because
I would agree.
It just seems clunky and unnecessary and a real big engineering challenge, and that's what I want to share on my side. But the real news, Jordan, like you mentioned, is it's gone missing from the order configuration page.
Yeah, so not technically missing from the website, but missing from the order configuration, which is where it would have said, add range extender for $16,000. And then there was a deposit of some sort. Initially, I think it was $500. Then it was $2,000 for a deposit, a non-refundable deposit. And so the questions surrounding this are what happens to those deposits? Is it canceled? A lot of people are saying and reporting on this that it's canceled. But Tesla does still show it on their website. If I pull that up here, not in the order configuration area, but just in the Cybertruck area, it still shows in the actual specs at the very bottom. All the Tesla vehicles have the spec area, and it shows range extender. Well, range plus range extender next to the normal range for all-wheel drive and Cyber Beast.
Okay. So I kind of have a sneaking suspicion they're still working on this.
Yeah.
I only say that because of some rumors, just some gut feeling stuff, talking to people.
Yeah.
That it's not canceled.
Right.
That's not confirmation, but that's just what I've kind of gathered.
Right. Two different things could be true. It could be softly canceled, which I would equate to Apple's AirPower, the wireless charging pad that was supposed to charge a device anywhere you place it. And Apple is just like, you know what? It's not perfect. And so we're canceling it. Although it's still on Apple's roadmap, technically.
I hope they do it.
Yeah.
I really want that.
I know. Me too. It's sick. So it is technically still on the roadmap. And maybe that's what this looks like. This has been not canceled, perhaps, still on Tesla's roadmap, still on the website in one space specifically, but it's like softly postponed maybe. Because maybe it's because they were getting so many orders. Like there's a lot of things that it could be.
Okay, so let's talk about why this is even needed. So let's back up. This is going to be a real range extender episode.
Hell yeah.
Okay, Cybertruck launched with too small of a battery pack for a truck.
Yep.
Way too small.
123-ish kilowatt hours.
Yeah, I think when our truck was brand new, we pulled 124 out of it, relying on in-car sensors, which always have some variance. So 123 is the stated usable capacity of the battery pack, which is not enough, Jordan.
Yep.
It gets very good EPA range, 320-ish miles, right? 325?
325 of this dual motor, 320 in Cyber Beast.
Okay, and that's with the ugly wheels. If you get all terrains, then,
Yeah.
Whatever. The thing is, as soon as you drive the Cybertruck in harsh conditions with a trailer, do anything else, that range number means nothing. And now you've got a 190-mile truck.
Yeah, if that.
Yeah. So like my truck, we put big tires on it, the light bar, the blah, blah, blah. Like 200, low mid 200s is pretty reasonable for what I get out of mine. And then the charging performance of that battery pack sucks ass. Technical term. Terrible charging vehicle. One of the worst.
Yep.
One of the worst charging. Everyone's like, oh, it has a peak of 500 kilowatts. Well, first of all, no, it doesn't at the moment. And that will only be at 0 or 1%, because when Tesla showed it doing 500 kilowatts, it was at 0 or 1%.
Yeah.
And then it's just going to hit the ground. The curve is not going to change that much. I mean, maybe they can massage it over time, but the overall performance of the cell won't change. The only benefit to having higher charging power will be early on.
Yep.
So to get, towing with a truck is super important, especially to me. And so when I ordered my Cybertruck, I ordered it by reserving also the range extender, because I was like, first of all, I want as much range as possible with a trailer. The truck doesn't really need much more unless you start using it for work, but that's what a truck's for.
Yep.
So for many people, having a small-ish 120 kilowatt hour pack is fine. It's the smallest of any of the electric pickup trucks.
It's true, yeah.
Lightning's 131 on the big pack.
Except for the LFP Rivian, right?
Well, even even Ford offers a small version, but I'm thinking big pack for big pack,
Right,
which is what people buy when they need to work.
Yeah.
So you get 131 kilowatt hours in Lightning, 145 in Rivian with Max Pack, which is still lame. Then you get 217 usable in the GM stuff.
Yep. Even GM's smaller batteries are still bigger than the Cybertruck's only battery.
I also love how GM quotes their capacity as like just some random number.
Yeah.
It means nothing. They say 205. We just pull way more than that every time.
Yeah, every time. I don't know why.
Yeah, they like Equinox, 85 kilowatt hours, 92 I got the other day out of one.
GM, man.
Yeah,
Interesting.
Under promise and over deliver.
So why did Tesla opt for range extender? I mean, first of all, range extenders are not something completely new. You had an i3 with the Rex range extender.
That was a combustion range extender.
Yeah. So there's combustion range extenders, and then there's this whole battery range extender idea. And then there's the alternate idea, which GM basically took. Other vehicles are too, where it's just different battery sizes.
Right. You could just put a big battery in it.
Right.
And I was that seems like the elegant solution.
Yeah.
Then you have a total system from day one that's designed with, really to me the right number for an electric pickup truck. Like if you want a long range electric pickup truck to tow, it's 200 kilowatt hours.
Yep.
That feels about right. 180 plus, I would say. Even Rivian's Max Pack is not enough when you're towing, and then the charging performance. All of these trucks charge terribly, by the way.
Why?
I don't know. The GM stuff is like better, but it's still such a huge battery.
Right.
And it has thermal issues when charging, although there have been updates that we need to get into. But that's the best of what we have. And even then, they're not that amazing.
Right.
So Cybertruck, I think in order to hit the claimed figures that they wanted to do, when it was first unveiled, Colton and I were at the launch event.
Yep.
And we saw that range extender. We both looked at each other like, what the heck is going on here? So let's quantify what that has to be. The truck says it does 325 miles right now.
Yeah.
The range extender is going to increase the total mileage to 445 plus is what they say.
Yeah,
or
440 for the Cyber Beast, 445 for all-wheel drive. So it's just 5 mile difference according to their website.
Yeah, and that's just a little efficiency difference between the trucks, which they're almost identical.
Right.
And so based off what we've calculated, that has to be around 40 kilowatt hours because we're assuming they're running the same cycle for each truck. That's around 40 kilowatt hours of capacity.
Yeah.
That, first of all, from what we've seen in the basic mock-up and photos, if they ever do this, like I still would not be surprised if it's gone, canceled, we never see one make it to production.
Yeah.
That would feel like a very Tesla thing to do in this case. A little bit like Roadster, just always promise and never get it there, which is annoying.
Yeah.
If they end up doing the Cybertruck range extender, it's going to have to go in the bed based off what we can tell, and it's going to reduce the usable bed size by quite a bit.
Yep.
So you're already going to have like a size issue. Then you have the weight penalty of putting it in there. So the weight penalty doesn't really concern me too much from an efficiency and range perspective because weight doesn't impact range all that much on flat ground.
Yep.
It does in the mountains a bit, but it's, the truck's already pretty heavy and that's not your biggest issue here. What I'm concerned about is the payload of the truck. Now, Cybertruck has a really high payload for an electric truck.
Yeah.
So it can accommodate this. But what I'm concerned about is with that 11,000 pound towing maximum, 10% of that has to be on the tongue as tongue weight, which goes towards your payload.
Yep.
And so I forget exactly what my Cybertruck has for payload. I want to say it's in mid 2000s or something.
Yeah.
By the time you put in a 40 kilowatt hour pack, that's going to weigh 1,000 pounds.
Yep.
Then you're going to put a full trailer on with 1,000 pounds of tongue weight.
Yep.
Can you still tow 11,000 pounds with the range extender? Because Tesla in the manual states that even though it has a certain amount of payload, it has to be distributed throughout the truck.
Yep.
Like I think there needs to be 400 pounds in the front trunk in order to get up to the maximum GVWR of the truck and still maintain its performance that it's rated for.
Yeah.
So I'm really concerned about the weight and staying within the legal limit. And so many people will just run them overweight, of course, like that's a thing. But especially for us for testing, and if you have a major accident, like if you have a problem and you like let's say you kill someone and your truck's loaded incorrectly, you are now liable.
Yep.
Like that does not help your case whatsoever. I mean, a situation has to go really wrong for it to get that bad, but this is why we never recommend anyone to ever overload their vehicles and always follow the guidelines. Putting the range extender in the bed, which is what you want for towing, is going to no question limit what you can put in the truck when you have a heavy trailer on the back.
Right.
which is really annoying. Jordan, I got more problems, believe it or not.
Keep them coming.
I don't think Tesla's never said how they're going to arrange this battery yet. So is it going to be LFP cells? My guess is probably not. Most LFP comes from China. Now with the tariff situation, I doubt they're going to source there. Are they going to be more 4680s in there? At what voltage will that battery be at?
Yeah, so the real question is, how would the battery interface with an existing truck?
Yes.
And then you have the slight complexity of maybe an older battery, like your truck, for example, 7,000 miles, suddenly being paired with a new, smaller, but substantial battery.
Right. So let's say let's take the first approach, which I can't imagine they're going to do, which is that they have to literally be bus bar connected to the main battery through, a physical connection. I think there's almost no way they can make that work because the battery pack of the range extender will then have to match the voltage range of the standard battery pack that's in the vehicle already. And as you mentioned, new cells versus aged cells will have different inherent capacities, which means as you go through the charge and discharge cycle, your voltage ranges will be different. And you can't have that much spread of a voltage range because you're really only as strong as your weakest link. And it can really mess up the BMS calibration. It can really mess up the whole balance of the pack. And this is why we see so many problems, for example, with remanufactured Tesla battery packs.
Yep.
What Tesla will do is the whole idea early on with electric cars was let's break the battery into modules so that if a module fails, you don't have to replace the whole battery. You can put in a new cell group. Mm-hmm. The reality is that doesn't work. It might work for the first 3 months of driving. But after you go through this charge and discharge cycle, you'll have basically excited cells that are fresh and brand new and can handle it. And then the weaker cells that you're trying to interface them with. And the whole system gets out of whack. And we see this with our out of spec renew channel very often, where people try to repair cars by putting fresh modules in. And it makes it so that you can't drive them down very low. Like they'll just brick at 30% state of charge or whatever. And sometimes you can't even get them charged up to 100%. There's also a fire risk in there because now you have completely different voltage ranges. It makes the truck work overtime to try to balance everything. So I really think it's extremely unlikely, almost zero chance that the range extender, if it were to come, would be directly connected as an extension of the main high voltage battery pack of the truck.
Right. So you think it would be just treated as a separate battery in a way?
I think there's no other way than it to be treated as a separate unit that would then be DC linked through, a buck boost converter, essentially, a DC to DC that would sit in between the high voltage battery and the range extender.
Right.
And then also from a cooling and heating perspective, I can't imagine it's going to be a passively cooled and heated battery pack unless it really is not providing much power, in which case it could be passively cooled, which I would worry about, like just the sun exposure and getting it really hot and whatever. But it's very possible that it might not have active cooling. But if it does, I think it's going to have to be contained within the enclosure itself. It's going to have its own coolant, its own chiller, its own heater, and that's going to have its own thermal system inside of the range extender, separate from the high voltage battery pack. It's possible they could tie it into the loop on the truck. That's going to require a really extensive purging process that only probably Tesla could do. Mm-hmm. And then it's locked to the truck. Yeah. So now you have a Cybertruck with just like 1,000 pounds less payload forever.
Yeah, less bed space. I mean, it takes up, I think, 30% of the bed space, as what they quoted. Mm-hmm. So it's a substantial, on the screen here, it's a substantial bump in the trunk.
Yeah.
And so it's not nothing. A lot of people, to many people's point, don't use the bed of their truck.
I'm actually probably would be okay with this.
Yeah. It's very rare when I've seen your bed full of things.
Right. And usually it's out of laziness because I don't pull stuff out. So I just keep jamming more things in there.
It's just a closet.
Yeah. But towing is what I care about. And this could help with towing range.
Right.
So let's say they end up using like an LFP cell for this, or because now if they have a buck boost converter, they can do whatever they want with cells and voltage range of this and everything like that. The output only will really have to be as strong as whatever that DC to DC is, which in theory would be just enough to pull you up while towing. Let's say you do the TFL towing test or our rustic ring towing test. I think it needs to be able to maintain the truck at like 0% state of charge on the high voltage battery. And it needs to output whatever you need to cover the most extensive tow situation, which is not full power.
Right.
You really probably need 150 kilowatt continuous maximum, which for a 40 kilowatt hour pack, it's 3C. DC to DC could be able to handle that. The normal cells could handle that. It probably doesn't need to charge that fast.
I was going to say, it'd be interesting to see the charging strategy on a pack like this. And if it wasn't LFP, then it's like, okay, well, how much of a buffer does this pack have? What's the recommended charging calculus that they do for the main pack and this pack all tied together? Like, so many questions.
This is where it starts to really feel unelegant and almost add to the confusion here because, basically, is it going to have a separate charge port? I doubt it. I think you're just going to tie it into, and then you'll have, the main charge port, and then you'll have the ability to choose where the power goes, is how I am envisioning this working.
Yeah.
From a DC charging perspective, if they're not going to do the active thermal management, if they're not going to do the cooling, I wonder how this is going to work from a quick splash and dash at a supercharger. Certainly, you're going to be limited to whatever that buck boost converter can do. Mm-hmm. And if you plop into a supercharger really quick, and you get that, 10-minute stop and you're back on the road, I don't think you're going to get that much meaningful energy into the range extender at that point.
Yeah.
And so, this is where the thing that makes the most sense, I think, is to scrap the range extender program because it feels so clunky and it's like wasteful.
Yep.
And just offer a high battery capacity Cybertruck.
Yeah.
Do it properly. 180 plus kilowatt hour.
I mean, some of the early teardowns showed that there was like more space, wasn't there?
In the pack, yeah, more for off-gassing and safety underneath. I don't think it's enough where you could double stack those 4680s.
Yeah.
But knowing Tesla, like they could come out with a higher energy density 4680, potentially one that could even charge better at the same time.
Yep.
Like that cell is just very underperforming in general.
Yeah, instead of
not from a cost perspective, from cost it seems to be great. That's what they're optimizing for.
Yeah. And for daily driving, it's fine, but charging is rough. So yeah, the implementation is interesting, and also with installation seems like a huge challenge. I mean, a lot of people supposedly have ordered this. We don't know numbers.
Yeah, I'm one of them.
But a lot of people have put money down on this, and installation would have to be a extensive process at a Tesla service center.
Absolutely, without question. And the thing is, it's not like you'll be able to pull it in and out of the truck at leisure. I think it is something where, like, let's say you do want to remove it from the truck. You bring it to Tesla. They're not going to store it for you.
Yeah.
There's no room. I was just in our Tesla service center today. There is no room for anything in there.
Right.
And so once it's in the truck, it's in.
Yeah, so then it just becomes a Cybertruck range extended.
Yeah, so what I think they should do is they should offer a core, like whatever the range extender cost is for all of us who pre-ordered it, give us a new battery.
Yeah.
Pull the battery out of the truck. We know it's a pain in the ass because the interior's got to get dropped because it's structural in a sense, but it's doable because I had a friend with a Cybertruck that they dropped the battery on.
Yep.
Take that battery core charge, save it for a reman pack, do whatever you got to do. This is my request. Put in a new generation big boy battery pack, charge us the same $16,000 difference or whatever it would have been. Instead of now giving us 165-ish kilowatt hours, which would be with the range extender, make it a good 180 to 200.
Yep.
And then that seems like the most logical solution to me. Then everyone gets fresh packs. I mean, it's probably really expensive, but and then everything's like dialed in the truck properly.
Right.
I doubt they're going to do that, Jordan, but that would be the dream. It's actually not unheard of though, because Tesla offered a big battery Roadster swap.
That's right. How did that work?
Yeah, so when Roadster 3.0 battery came out in 2016, it was called the R80 pack. And they essentially offered to any Roadster owners, I think they prioritized those that had bricked packs or whatever. I think it was 29,000 at the time. It's gone up since then. They're like 40 grand now. But it was like 29 grand at the time. You could get the R80 pack. They would take your old pack as a core exchange.
Yep.
Then they would put the new 80 kilowatt hour, it's like 70 usable, in your Roadster. And it was like 400 something miles of range.
Yep.
What is a Model S long range, by the way?
About 400.
Okay. Was the Roadster with R80 pack the highest EPA rated Tesla ever?
That's what I'm looking at. I remember it was crazy high.
It was in the
so
400s.
Awesome. I think it was 400 exactly. So that brought it up to like 80 kilowatt hours total.
Yeah, 400 miles range. So less than Model S. But the problem with those batteries were they were really shitty. They just had a cell supplier issue.
Yeah.
And the R80 packs were actually the ones that were failing first.
Yep.
which was unusual. And then they stopped producing them in 2018. I think they did 16 to 18.
Yeah,
I could be
think
wrong.
so.
Now there's a new generation pack without the cell supplier issue that came out in 2020. It's still the one you could get. It's still an 80 kilowatt hour pack, but it's a better cell. And so that's what Roadster owners should do.
That's my dream car. Yeah, I feel like the Cybertruck, I mean, the range extender feels clunky, feels kind of weird, and I feel like all the R&D they put towards that could have just been towards a different battery with better charging and like just refining the truck.
Totally.
Because the truck really does not seem fully baked. I mean, we've had so many issues with your truck.
Yeah, well, we have an early truck, to be fair,
Yeah.
but that truck was not done when we took delivery.
Yeah. And even seeing that with like you've had your truck a year, you ordered the range extender, that's still not out and
Nope.
seems very far from being out.
And they have my $500.
Yeah. And I mean, you've only somewhat recently got FSD, and like light bar came way later, locking differentials. Like we did a whole video on all the stuff that came later that you paid for up front.
Right.
And so it's frustrating because it is, I think, like for me, it's objectively actually probably the best truck. I like Rivian, I like how they look, but for my software and sound system and steer-by-wire preferences,
Yeah, and daily comfort.
yeah, Cybertruck kills it. So
Totally. Yeah. So I'm not really sure what exactly Tesla should do here in this case. I think I agree with you that they should cancel the range extender.
yeah,
I think that makes the R&D effort just to make that all work and interface and then to tax the service centers with it. That's tough. I'm sure they have the infrastructure to do it.
yeah,
I'm sure it's not that needed. And what I would much prefer is like just one big battery that everything's connected and okay, I know that works.
Right.
So that would tickle my fancy more, if you will, that they just swap the batteries in them. Like I said, I don't think they're going to do that. If they do work on the range extender, and if that really does come to fruition, which is the suspicion I have, that is still going to happen, I cannot wait to see how the implementation works. That is the big mystery here.
I think, yeah, if no matter what happens, if they continue or if they cancel it, I'm curious what happens with the reservations, especially if they continue it but then change it, and if they make the implementation so hard that it will have very low adoption, which is what Tesla needs. I feel like Tesla's going to lose money on everything because of what it takes. And I think maybe they'll just make it like, oh yeah, we can definitely install that for you. We will need your truck for 4 weeks or something like that.
Just try to disincentivize
kind
it.
of like how, there was very briefly the $35,000 Model 3 that Elon touted when the Model 3 was unveiled.
Yeah, so they did it just to do it.
And it was so hard to like even do that.
Yeah, because you had to downgrade from standard plus to standard.
Yeah. And so they just made it so unappealing that no one actually wanted it.
Right.
And here we are, Model 3 is still a huge selling car, so it's like it didn't ultimately hurt them. So like, what will they do that strategy with a range extender?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's most of the concerns laid out in this video, Jordan. Just a big question mark. Certainly, like Tesla hasn't come out and said it's not canceled.
Right, Tesla's just quiet on the front.
They just haven't said anything, and so I'm really personally curious to see what the heck they do. I don't think we're going to have our truck much longer.
Yep.
And you'll see a video about that coming very soon. So I don't know if we'll ever find out. But what would really suck is if they never make it and hold on to everyone's deposits.
Right.
Because they say non-refundable.
Yeah.
So does that mean if they don't do it, it's non-refundable?
I don't know. I don't know the fine print of that.
Yeah.
You have to get a lawyer.
I didn't read. Yeah. I didn't read it. But that would suck. That would be such a shady move.
That would make huge bad publicity. So I think they're avoiding that at all costs.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen.
But it'd be a lesser but still a bummer if they still gave you something, but just not what you wanted or what you ordered. I mean, even the range extender was, to back up even further, the Cybertruck was unveiled to have up to 500 miles of range. Then when the Cybertruck was really unveiled, the actual production one, it was 470, and then they walked.
But that was
back.
with the range extender.
That was with range extender, and then they walked that back to 440, 445.
Which makes me think maybe they were working on it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Right.
Because then they realized, oh shit, we can't hit 470.
Yeah, can't hit 470, so that's the actual number.
And people already gave 470 crap because it wasn't 500, which they said in 2019.
And I didn't even know they walked it back again until just now.
Yeah.
And but that's such a Tesla move, isn't
By the
it?
time you get your range extender, it'll be like 12 extra miles.
Yeah, I don't know. Don't love it. Just feels out of everything with the Cybertruck, which is like really designed from the ground up as a super cool package that certainly is people don't realize this. Like, I talk to a lot of people at different car companies that are engineers. Like, people are in awe of the Cybertruck.
Yeah.
Not everyone can appreciate, but most car engineers are like, holy shit, that's cool.
Yep.
And like whatever component about it, like other car companies wish they could do that.
Right.
So it is like an engineering, pretty cool feat.
It's an engineering marvel, and that's what I love about it. I'm glad Jason Camisa covered that very early on, showing some of the cool things, telling the story of what Tesla's engineers were able to do. It frustrates me that there is so much blatant hate against Tesla right now because say what you will about Elon, but it's like Elon didn't build the Cybertruck. These engineers who are extremely brilliant,
and cool people. The people at Tesla are freaking awesome.
Yeah.
So that's maybe we have more exposure to that than most, which is why maybe we ignore some of the craziness going on out there.
You said explosion. That was a Freudian slip for the other episode we just recently did on exploding superchargers.
We just did a exploding supercharger episode.
But I think the range extender, my theory is going to be air power again.
You think that's never going to happen?
They're just never going to fully make it happen. I don't know, though. It's still a race because air power and the new Tesla Roadster were unveiled about the same time.
Okay.
In 2017, so it's a race.
Holy smokes! This is the worst side of the tech world.
Right.
So anyway, I hope they come up with something. My hope is they come out with a long range Cybertruck and they make that thing work. They got to just wipe the floor.
Basically Cybertruck 2.0.
Yeah.
It needs a bunch of other little things too that they have been working on throughout the 50,000 whatever, but just Cybertruck 2.0 with an actual proper bigger battery. Don't even need to say range extender. It's just the range is naturally extended.
Yep.
Don't pull the GM stupid thing where the extended range is actually the smaller battery.
Right. Yeah. In GM world, extended range means small.
Yeah.
And max means big, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Watch Tesla do a Pro Max.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the move. That would be the most elegant solution. And then just find a way for everyone who pre-ordered it just to upgrade the pack in there. I mean, there's going to be a lot of packs returned. So maybe their reman situation can't handle that, but I feel like there's enough use for Second Life and totally. Repurposing that would make it worth it. I think they're still going to do it. I think they're going to do a range extender, and I think it's going to be super underwhelming.
Okay.
And I hope it's not, because I hate that they rate everything in miles.
Right.
Because when you're towing, that goes out the window, and that's when you need the range extender.
Yep.
I mean, I've driven my truck across the country almost twice now. I haven't needed more range of the truck without a trailer.
Right.
I need it while I'm towing.
Right.
And if I'm towing, then your 440 miles of range means nothing. That extra 40 kilowatt hours, now that's a number.
Yeah.
That's really like an extra 40 miles of range.
Yeah, if they could have just advertised that. I miss the days where there was 90D and 90 kilowatt hours.
Right.
Transparency.
But the annoying thing is, Jordan, so the range extender on paper will sound like a lot. Look at all those extra miles. But when you're towing, you really get 1 mile per kilowatt hour.
Yeah.
Just an average trailer. I mean, that will change. You can go under that. I've towed trailers that get, 0.7 miles per kilowatt hour. I've towed trailers that I get 1.5 miles per kilowatt hour.
Yep.
But as a general rule, especially out here in the mountains where we live, an extra 40 kilowatt hours means an extra 40 miles of towing.
Yep.
Now, that's the only time I really need that range extender. So is 40 miles of towing worth $16,000? That's also the real big question. And then, because of the implementation questions we had, is it going to charge fast enough when I plug it into a supercharger, or do I only get that 40-mile benefit on the first leg?
Then that's a big problem.
That's a big problem. If I can't input energy into that thing, if it's not compensating and juicing that pack just as much as my main pack, then it really becomes a tough sell.
Yeah, and then it's not the same as with a lot of EVs, a recommended charging level of 80%. So only your first leg are using 100% because you maybe charged at home. But then the rest of it, you're benefiting by just charging to 80. This is different because it's that 80 or 60 or whatever it is. And then you still have slow charging gets to the top of that. And then you have the other extra buffer, which you can't even use.
Right. You mean the range extended side.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's going to get, the way that I'm envisioning them doing this is they're not going to wait till the main battery's at 100 for it to start charging the other one.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they're going to charge simultaneously, and it'll just bump up the charging performance to compensate for both.
That'd be nice.
So the main battery would basically be charging and under a little bit of load doing the DC to DC to the range extender. The problem is, like, if you go to a V3 supercharger, you're already smoking the cables on that thing.
Yeah.
So then you run into thermal issues while doing that because the whole charging equipment has to be under higher load for longer period of time. So then hopefully you find a V3 plus location and it can handle that. But then the truck also has to handle the thermals of that, which it does have a pretty robust thermal management system.
Don't worry. I think V3s will be long gone by the time this comes out.
Oh, guys. Yeah, what's going to come first? V4 supercharging everywhere or the range extender? There's so much speculation we can do. But to be totally honest, this is what keeps me up at night, thinking about how they're going to implement this, because we've never seen really anything like it.
Yeah,
We've seen a couple like battery range extender stuff. This guy, Jim Clefane, pretty cool dude, had like I think he did it with a RAV4 or a Model S, but he had a RAV4 EV that he would tow another RAV4 EV battery behind it. And he had them directly DC linked.
Cool.
Which was awesome and slightly dangerous and so awesome.
Yeah.
And I really liked that guy because he was pretty cool with that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But he had to make sure they were at like the perfect state of charge level, right? To link them.
Yep.
Otherwise you could just have like huge inrush current and like issues.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's 30 minutes of we don't know what exactly is happening, but we laid out.
Was it 30 minutes?
I think, yeah.
Wow.
We laid out
like
about
5.
everything, though, that I can think of.
Yeah. Thermal management, voltage matching, longevity, charging performance, weight, payload, of course.
Towing. Yeah, everything.
Yeah. And they're all big question marks. I have no idea how they're going to do it.
Right. I don't either.
Can't wait to film it when it happens. And if it doesn't happen,
still a video.
I think it's not going to happen. I don't know.
That's what I'm saying. So, all right. Well, let us know what you think in the comments. Is this all hot air? Is it gone? Is it gone in the way of the air power? Time will tell.
I just wish Tesla would tell us if they're going to do it, how they would do it.
Yeah. If they cancel it, I still want to have them on and explain what they were thinking.
Yeah, I want to know. I really want to know what the heck they were thinking about how this is all going to interface.
And then you'll finally sleep at night.
Yeah.
All right.
I could also just call Wes. But I don't want to do that. I don't want to pull that card.
All right. Well, that's enough.
Yeah. See you guys later. Bye-bye.